Salam guys and peace. So I wanted to share some thoughts on what I think are the 5 biggest problems that are destroying the Muslim Ummah. These are in no particular order and I will speak more about them in the future. But just to give you a brief idea of what I think are the major issues. Number 1, sectarianism. Muslims have become so focused on our differences and hatred for each other that we're not able to work together towards similar goals, and therefore we'll always remain divided and conquered. We may thrive as individual nations and states, but never as an ummah. We've been fooled to think that our differences are religious, when in fact those differences all stem for political reasons or for power. The average Muslim from one sect knows nothing about the beliefs of the other sect except what they have been brainwashed with by their religious leaders for sectarian reasons, yet they hate them and they see them as enemies. So let me ask you this, why would Allah want Muslims to hate each other? How can that be a good thing? In fact, Allah commands us to hold on to the rope of Allah together and to not be divided. So how and why would God want division and hatred between His creation? In what way does it benefit God? It doesn't. Which begs the question, who does it benefit and how? Once Muslims begin to realize this, they will start to understand how silly this whole sectarian division is. Number 2, misogyny. This is a huge problem that we face today, which is not only destroying our women, but whole families. I know the counter argument to this would be that it's actually the rise of feminism that is the real problem for marriages. But the irony those making this argument don't see is that it's the misogyny and the oppression which is the driving force behind the rise in toxic feminism. It's so sad that in almost every single Islamic marriage or relationship I'm aware of, the women are suffering and unhappy. Yes, it's true that many men are also unhappy in relationships and marriage, but the difference is that men are unhappy because they are fulfilled, or because their wives are nagging or are being needy, whereas women are unhappy and miserable because their needs as women are not being fulfilled, or because they're getting physically, emotionally and financially abused. So the misery and suffering in those two scenarios are not the same. And the worst thing about it is that so many Muslim men will justify this kind of abuse using their distorted interpretations of the deen. Muslim men simply do not realize they're completely oblivious to the amount of suffering Muslim women go through in our community. But the thing is, you cannot have a household in which a mother is suffering and expect the children to grow up healthy. No children can grow up healthy in a household where the mother is down, depressed, is being shouted at or physically abused. It guarantees that they themselves, the children, will grow up with their own emotional and mental problems. Number 3, overly strict parenting. I know we live in difficult times right now, where not only are we surrounded by lots of immorality, but also ideologies that are dangerous to us and our children. So what tends to happen is that parents start panicking and they react. And the easiest thing to do to protect our kids is to get stricter and more controlling over them. This creates the illusion of protection, but in reality, it's counterproductive. Parents think that their kids are innocent because they believe their strict and controlling parenting is keeping them on the straight and narrow. But they don't realize that actually their kids are still doing what they would have done. They're just hiding it from them. I know so many kids with strict parents who are engaged in so many things that their parents would not approve of. But the really scary thing is what I found by speaking to a lot of these parents is that they don't actually care what their kids do, so as long as they're not made aware of it. And this made me realize that most of them are actually not really trying to protect their children, but are unconsciously trying to protect their own identities and egos. The other problem with this type of parenting is that it stuns the child's development by preventing them from exploring their creativity and curiosity. And it deprives them the opportunity to gain autonomy by making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and growing into mature adults. Number 4 is cognitive dissonance. So many Muslims live a life of contradictions. And while sometimes it's okay, it doesn't cause any harm, at other times it causes great harm. For example, we say that people should think for themselves and to use their intelligence, yet we penalize them for questioning anything that makes us uncomfortable. We talk about mercy and brotherhood, and yet we turn on slander and cancel each other over disagreements. We recite the verse, "There is no compassion in religion," but we pressure people into religion and acting in a way that we think is right. We claim Islam honors women, but we mistreat them, degrade them, and see them as second-class citizens. And the list goes on. Our beliefs and actions are often out of sync. Something inside us knows that it doesn't add up, but we avoid thinking about it because it's uncomfortable. And when we're forced to think about it, we get defensive and try to justify it. The problem with this is that it demonstrates how unaware we are as individuals and as a community. which means that we're not able to see the real problems we face and suffer, let alone address them. And until we face the contradiction between what we say we believe and how we live, we will stay spiritually stuck and socio-economically behind the rest of the world. Number 5, delusion. There is a fine line between the power of belief to give us strength, hope, resilience, and for those same very beliefs to be the cause of demise, and we don't talk about the latter enough. There was a time when drought would mean that there was no harvest and people would starve. The rich had plenty of food, but the poor, they had to survive somehow. The belief that God was testing them, or cleansing them, or that prayer would bring about rain were beliefs that kept them going. Today, we have Muslims who use the same excuses for not earning or providing for their families, saying that their situation is a test from God, and rather than doing what they need to do to improve their chances and opportunities, they resort to prayer to solve their problems. In a world which was heavily patriarchal and often misogynistic, women were stuck in marriages, whether happy, unhappy, or abusive. If they left, they'd be stigmatized. They would be cast out by society and probably have to live alone in a man's world. They were literally forced to stay put, and their way of coping was believing that God was testing them through their hardships. Today, you have women stuck in unhappy and abusive marriages, and rather than understanding their problems and fixing them, or leaving if they see no fix, they stay, saying that this is their test, destroying themselves in the process. And mental health, for example, is something that we have only been beginning to understand in recent times. So historically, in the absence of explanations, people believed seizures, psychosis, personality disorders, depression, and other mental health illnesses were the works of magic and demon possession. But it's madness, no pun intended, to believe that in the era we live in today, that people need to go to exorcists to heal from what is clearly mental health illnesses. Our faith is meant to empower us, not put us at a disadvantage. People rightly use beliefs in the past as a way of giving them strength and hope. But sadly, while the rest of the world has moved on and developed, we've got to a place where we now use religion as a way of holding us back while the rest of the world progresses. And those are the 5 biggest problems I see facing the Muslim Ummah that are destroying us today. So let me know what you guys think, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, and let me know whether you would put those 5 things in any particular order. And if you think I've missed anything out, please mention them in the comments. I'd love to know about them. Jazakallah khairan for listening. Salam.